Well, howdy folks, welcome back to the shop. So today we got relatively a small job to do. It should be relatively simple. So I'm going to turn you around and show you more details, but here's what we got to do is this bushing was actually sent to me the wrong size. So I ordered an 1 3/8 shaft or hole in here, and they sent me an 1 1/8. So what we got to do is we got to bore this hole out and then also put a keyway in it, and I'm going to try to use the shaper and put the keyway in since I don't have a broach for 5/16. So the keyway that's in here now is a 1/4 inch, and what we're going to put in is a 5/16. So let me turn you on and explain everything, how we're going to get everything set up, and then we'll get started.
Alright guys, so here's a closer look at that bushing. And whenever you get into these size pulleys and stuff, this is how it's pretty common for this kind of stuff to be this way. They're for high torque applications or whatever. And this is for an air compressor, if I didn't mention that earlier. But so this is a 7-inch diameter pulley. And whenever you get into this side, a lot of times these aren't called pulleys, they're called sheaves or sheaves. So you usually have a sheave, and then this is a bushing. Some people call it a hub. But the way they work is this guy goes in here, and you put 3 bolts in here and it draws it tight up against the other, but these are tapered. So there's a taper on this and a taper on this. So what happens whenever you draw that tight, it actually clamps on the motor shaft, and this is for the motor side. But so this sheave we got, I actually got it off of eBay for really cheap. I was surprised because these are, you know, closer to $100 by themselves, and we only needed a 2 groove. But I got this for $42, and it's exactly what we need, except for it has the extra groove. And it doesn't really matter. It's not going to matter for the application. There's plenty of room there and everything for it. So we just went ahead and got this because, like I said, we couldn't pass up the price. And then we ordered this, and you have to match these actually. So this is an SD SX, and this is an SD. So the SD series have a certain taper to them, so they have to be mated together, and there is other tapers out there. I don't know them offhand, but there are other tapers out there. So with that said, so what happened is I got this, it's an 1 1/8, and I need an 1 3/8. I contacted them, and they said they didn't have any other 1 3/8 on the shelf, so they just told me to keep this one. And they sent all my money back, so I can't really complain. They even gave me the shipping money back, so that was great. So our thought is why not see if we can go ahead and get this board to the 1 3/8 that we need, and then try to cut the 5/16 shaft in it, or the keyway into it, and then we can try to use it. So I did go ahead and measure this, the idea of this, just to give me a baseline, and it is 1 thou and a few tenths over 1 1/8. So we're going to follow suit with that. So whenever we bore this to an 1 3/8, we're probably going to make it an inch and like 1.376 and maybe 1.3765, something like that, somewhere in that range. So we're going to go 1 thousandths over. So fixturing this is kind of a little bit of a pain because, you know, with this taper on it, you can't really get a good bite in the lathe. You could clamp on the outside here, but you have to be careful because see how this is split, you know, it's designed to squeeze. Well, you could actually be cutting this oversized if you squeeze this and not knowing how much you squeezed it. So what I ended up doing is making a aluminum block here, and I bored it to where it just fits and it goes right up on a flat. So what we're going to do is we'll line this up, and then I'm going to use it's a 1/4 inch high-speed steel, and we're going to make sure it's square, and then I'm going to clamp it down, put the 3 bolts in it, and then this will be our fixture for in the lathe, and it'll be the fixture for in the shaper to cut the keyway in it. Now if I had a 5/16 broach, this would make this a lot easier because then we could just broach the keyway in, but I do not. So we're going to try to use the shaper to cut this keyway in. So, well, let me get this bolted down and lined up. You kind of seen how I was going to do that, and then let's get this in the lathe and start boring it out. All right, so I got it set up here in the lathe. I was kind of surprised whenever I got this put in here. You can see the face, it's running a few tenths So, I mean, it's pretty much dead on already. So let's check the bore in there and see if we're centered up that way. I don't know how well you can see it, but I'm probably, it looks like it's well over 100 thousandths out, so we need to get it brought in. Actually, that way it's not terribly bad. It's this direction here. So it's going to be a little bit difficult. I may end up going on the outside of this because the keyway is giving me a little bit of trouble, and then that slit's giving me a little bit of trouble. And I'm trying to get it to skip over, which it's doing, but it's being a little bit of a pain. So yeah, I'm going to try to go on the outside of this. All right, so I got it set up here on the outside, and it's about the same. It's 100 and some thousandths, and I'm trying to run right on this edge here to miss the washers, but also to where it don't fall into this set screw hole. And it barely makes it there, but it does make it. So all right, there's our high side. Here's our low. All right, it is pretty much there. I think there's a little bit of a raise here, because if I go right before it, I'm pretty much dead on. But if I go right there, I'm about 2 thousandths over. But right on the other side of it, I'm dead on again. So I think there's a little hump there. So it is fluctuating a few tenths as well. I mean, it's pretty much dead on. So what we're going to do is we're going to check the inside again just to see. I'm hoping that they both run true to each other. I would think they would, but you always check. So I'm not trying to put a ton of pressure on it because of the keyway. It is within tenths. So I think I'm going to leave everything to where it is. And then I think we're going to start cutting. All right, so we have everything set up. You kind of seen everything there. So let's start boring it out. All right, so we need to go from 1 1/8" to 1 3/8". So it's basically a 1/4 inch we got to take out. So we're going to take light cuts. So what I did there was a spring pass. I just wanted to get a spring pass on it and just to see, because we should have, according to this, we should have about 20 to 40 thousandths to come out. And that is right on. All right, so we should be to size. So let's see. Right there, 1.375 on the nose. So what I'm going to do is run a spring pass down through it, and that'll get me probably the tenths over that I want. But otherwise, lathe work is done. And there you have it. I'm going to take this out so I get a better straight on shot here. But let's see what she measures. And I am a few tenths over 1.375. We're actually 5 tenths over, so I was shooting for a thousandths. I may take another spring pass, but otherwise lathe work's done. So let's get everything set up in the shaper and start getting this keyway cut. And you can see there's just a little bit of the old keyway still left in there. So all right, so I figured I'd roll you around here a little bit. So here's the boring bar you can see set up in here, and that's just a 1/4 inch high-speed steel. So the shaper I pretty much have set up. I have it relatively short stroke, relatively slow speed, and that's all determined by this all in here. So you can see I'm running about a 2-inch stroke up here. That's what this guy is here. So I'm basically barely going through the material, and that's what I wanted. So usually it's about a 1/4 inch on both sides. On the back side I got a little bit more than that. I might have a 1/2 inch, but that's what I wanted. So with that said, guys, you can kind of see how the setup is. So let's get started. I did make a scratch pass already, and it does look all right. And actually you can see that there. And this dial indicator here is for my depth. This dial indicator here is for my side to side, because like I said, this is a 1/4 inch and we're looking for a 5/16 keyway. So I need to step over 32 thousandths, basically a 32nd both directions to get it to size. So probably what I'll do is I'll probably move it over 30 thousandths one way, move it over 30 thousandths the other way, and mic it and make sure. And I'm just going to use a piece of 5/16 high-speed steel as my guide, because it doesn't have to be perfect for this, but I want to get as close as possible, so I want a nice snug fit on that 5/16 stock there. So with that said, guys, you can see I did do the scratch pass and it does look all right. I'm running extremely slow. So my depth too is 156 thousandths down, so it's half of the 5/16 keyway. So half of it's in the shaft, half of it's in this. So let's get started here. You can see it seems to be working pretty well. It is going to take me some time, and like I said, I'm running it slow purposely, but we've only went down 40 thousandths so far. So it's going to take us a little bit of time here. And this cutter is cut or ground as a neutral rake. It might be better with a little bit of a positive rake on it, or some relief in there. I'm not sure. But it seems to be working rather well. You can see it's definitely cutting nice. So right there's our depths at 156 thousandths. So what I'm going to do is let it sit there and dwell for a minute, because you can still see it's cleaning up a little bit. So what's happening is as it's going in, it must be lifting up just a little bit, because you can see chatter marks all across the bottom there, which I kind of expected. So I'm just going to let it sit there and dwell for a little bit, and it looks like it pretty much is done until it finishes cutting. And actually it looks pretty good. So I don't know how well you can see in there, but it does. The bottom actually looks really nice. Yeah, actually it looks really nice. So what we're going to do now is we're going to bring it back up to our starting point, and we're going to right there, and then we're going to step over our 30 thousandths. And there we go. So with that said, let's start cutting down the side here. And actually, we probably could speed it up a little bit now. I'm going to raise this up just in case it does hit. So I'd sped it up just a hair. I don't want to go too much. And bottom. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and raise it back up. And then we're going to crank over the other direction 30 thousandths. And right there. Well, there you see it. Actually looks pretty good from what I can see so far. But there it is. Actually, it fits rather nice too. So beautiful. We're basically done with this operation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this guy out of here. I'm going to go ahead and deburr it all. Another thing I wanted to point out is you can see the depth looks like it's good too, because it's about half of the keyway. So I think that's perfect. So like I said, let me get this out. We'll get it deburred, and then I'll show you what it looks like as soon as we're done. All right, folks. Well, you can see that I got everything deburred. Everything looks good. I'm very happy with how this keyway turned out. Sometimes doing the keyway on a shaper is kind of a pain because you get that kind of chatter whenever it's trying to push that through there because of the boring bar hanging out so far and stuff. I will say locking the clapper does help. I will say definitely that helps, because I cut a keyway in something else before and I didn't have near as much trouble with this one here that I had with the other one. This material, by the way, is it cuts like regular steel, so I'm assuming maybe it's like a 4140 steel or something like that, but it actually cut very, very nice. I'm very happy with that. So here's a piece of key stock, and you can see it fits in there. The depth looks good. There's hardly any, if any, side-to-side clearance in that. So we did hit tolerance on that, so I'm very happy with that as well. The bore, I got it to 1.376, and that's actually the number I was shooting for. I was actually shooting for a little over that. And if it doesn't fit, probably could take a flapper wheel in here and clean this up a little bit more to get it to slide on the shaft. So I'm very pleased with how this turns out. I'll try to get a picture of this on the shaft for you so you can kind of understand how the whole pulley assembly goes together. But with that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned something or not. But please hit that like and subscribe button if you can. And until next time, take care.